Welcome back. You're watching NewsX and I'm Shivani Singh. India's dream of defending their T20 World Cup title suffered a massive setback on February 22nd, 2026, when South Africa crushed them by 76 runs in the Super 8 opener at Narendra Modi Stadium, Ahmedabad. South Africa posted 187 for 7. David Miller scored 63 of 35. We have Tristan Stubbs at 44 not out as well. They were recovering from early trouble. But India, chasing 188, collapsed to 111 all out in 18.5 overs, their lowest total in a T20 World Cup chase. Shivam Dube top scored with 42, Marco Jensen took 4 for 22, Keshav Maharaj took 3 for 24. This ended India's 12-match winning streak in T20 World Cups, including the 2024 title run, and marked their heaviest defeat by runs in tournament history. It was also their first ICC tournament loss since the 2023 ODI World Cup final. The blow hit hard. India's net run rate plunged to around minus 3.80, severely damaging semi-final hopes. With only 2 group games left, they must win both convincingly, rely on other results and boost their net run rate massively to qualify. The margin for error is now razor thin. With that, let's take a look at the scenarios for India to qualify for the semi-finals, and also what is the cost of the net run rate going in negative, because this is something important to understand. Let's look at how and what the scenario looks like for India right now. India's qualification scenarios. We have scenario number 1 listed out for you. South Africa wins all the games. South Africa tops with 6 points. India qualify easily on 2nd, and Windies and Zimbabwe get 2 points each maximum. That's what scenario 1 looks like. We need West Indies and Zimbabwe to have only 2 points each maximum. That's all that they can if we want India to qualify. Let's look at scenario number 2. South Africa loses 1 game. Then South Africa is at 4 points, and there will possibly be a 3-way at all 4 points. So we have all 3 teams at 4 points, and then India only qualify if the net run rate improves massively. We need that net run rate to go well above that minus 3.80 mark that we have. That's scenario number 2 for you. You have a tie situation. India has a better net run rate. Only then can we see India qualifying. Let's look at scenario number 3. South Africa, Windies and Zimbabwe lose 1 game each. So we need all these 3 to lose 1 game each. We will look at multiple teams likely at 2 or 4 points, and then India with 2 wins will be in a stronger position, and the net run rate will become then the tiebreaker. So if all these 3 teams are at 2 points each, India is at a 2-win lead and they have a strong run rate, then we can see this 3rd scenario actually coming forward. Let's look at the game of the net run rate. India's current net run rate is minus 3.80. So this is something that we are looking at. It needs to improve and it needs to be in the positive. Obviously, we are hoping in order to compete with other teams. So what's the cost of a negative net run rate? The cost number 1 is massive disadvantage in the ties. So if India wins both the remaining games, a 3-way or a 4-way tie at 4 points is very likely in this group. And in this case, the net run rate will decide the top 2. So if you don't have a good net run rate, then you will automatically lose out on the chance to qualify. Cost number 2 is qualification hinges on the margins, not just on the wins. So even if you win the next 2 games, even if you have 2 wins, They may not be enough, and India will need big victories to boost the net run rate significantly. So even if you have 2 wins, you need to make sure that you're winning these games convincingly. You need to improve your net run rate. Otherwise, in the end, you will lose out. Let's look at cost number 3. South Africa actually is getting a huge cushion right now, because South Africa's plus 3.8 run rate means that they stay ahead even after one loss. So India risks finishing below South Africa, West Indies and Zimbabwe despite the same points. Let's look at cost number 4. There is pressure on every over per run. So poor net run rate forces risky, aggressive plays. Small defeats or close wins won't help. Another loss likely eliminates them outright. So if there is another loss, we will look at a proper elimination. The overall impact: heavy defeat turns must win both into must win both convincingly. So that is something that we are, and India is in fact looking at, that if you want to qualify for the semis, you need to make sure that you win all these games that are coming up, both these games convincingly, in order to make sure your net run rate is actually good. Let me introduce the panelists who are joining us on the guest: Sunil Yash Kalra, cricket scholar; John Nyambu, former Zimbabwe cricketer; and AKS Satish, who is a former sports editor of Gulf News. Thank you so much all for joining us on the broadcast and discussing this. Mr. Kalra, over to you for this discussion.
Thank you, Shivani. It's been a hectic World Cup, and guess what do we have? Satish, I'd like to come into you. Did you ever imagine India looking at net run rate to qualify for the World Cup? And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sunil. No, it was a rude shock for every single one of us. Yes, it was going to be a close game, is what we thought, but we never expected India to succumb such poorly and tamely after such a wonderful run over the last few years. I would say not even a year, a couple of years. India has been going pretty strong, and having played South Africa, now they should have understood the conditions. They should have known the players. But I think it was poor planning, probably, is what I would say cost India the downfall.
Well, poor planning is what you're saying that caused the downfall. John Nyambu, welcome to the show. You must have had a nice wide grin on your face throughout the tournament. Guess what? Zimbabwe is still the most impactful bowling side in the world. Did you ever expect that to hear from a television discussion?
Yeah, it's surreal to be able to sit here and talk about how well Zimbabwe is doing. And from a Zimbabwean perspective, we're usually the ones out with the calculators, calculating all those permutations, all these net run rates, and to be in a position where we're not, and to see a big team like India being the ones that are worried about all this just goes to show the change in shift in what sport is doing. But yeah, Zimbabwe is in a good space, and the bowlers are actually doing very well. And we hope that each and every game they turn up until whenever this tournament finishes for them.
Well, absolutely. This is a good, interesting point that you've raised. Let's take a step back. Let's reflect on the cricket India South Africa game. John, we are very passionate Indian critics, around 101.4 billion critics here. What do you think, as a former international player, what went wrong with India so that we can build it up from there?
I think, yes, we might say India didn't play as well as they did, but South Africa has become a force to reckon with. I mean, over the past few years, they've generally just started building little blocks in all forms of cricket, and it's beginning to bear its fruit now. I mean, they recently won the World Test Championship, and a lot of the players who played in there are also playing in here. And I remember our discussion prior to that game where you said that a lot of them are playing in the IPL, so it's like they're at home when they're playing in India and against Indian opposition. So I think they executed their game plan well. And I think it's just unfortunate that India has had that bad game at this stage of the competition, which we knew was going to come at one point or the other in this tournament. And I think for them, just go out, play the next two games as best you can. Don't worry about all the white noise that is being said around by all the critics, all the people that are talking about all these permutations, all these calculations, and just stick to doing what they do best. That's playing a good brand of cricket, a good and exciting brand of cricket that is always at us on the edge of our seats and enjoying cricket. And I think they'll still pull through and go to the semifinals.
Well, absolutely. Play a good brand of cricket. Unfortunately, India hasn't done that part bit pretty well, but let's see how things shape up. Let me just go on to AK Satish. Satish, in your 3 decades of sports journalism that you've done internationally, did you see a rigid and a tough taskmaster like Gautam Gambhir, who's slowly turning out to be like the chapel way of coaching? Your views, Satish?
Uh, I don't mind being a rigid coach, but if the results are showing, then good enough. But sadly, in the tenure of Gautam Gambhir, we have hit almost all the low points that we have not done in the last 3 decades. That includes the lowest total in the T20 in yesterday's game. We lost a series, home series 3-0. We lost to I think another test series. So there have been we lost a series in Sri Lanka. So since Gautam Gambhir took charge, there have been more low points than high points. That's a cause for worry, and I'm not blaming Gautam Gambhir entirely, but I would say especially if I look at yesterday's game, I would place a considerable amount of responsibility on the shoulders of the team management, especially the coaching staff. If you look at, we have very good talent in the ranks, but unfortunately, they have not been performing. For example, if Abhishek Sharma is not scoring, they should get into his. See, these coaches are not going to make them any corrections or correct them skills or basics. They are going to give them some inputs which help them to adjust and make those small adjustments that will make them the champions they are. But yesterday, if you look at, the biggest blunder India made was when South Africa batted, they knew that the new ball is doing something on a wicket that is slowing. And so the team should have thought, okay, guys, go ahead. Even 35 for one, 40 for one in the power play should help us. So don't go all out and play a proper, sensible cricket. That was not to be. So that's why I said poor planning in my earlier talk. I said poor planning is because you see the conditions, you see the opponent team struggle, and take a cue from there and adapt to those conditions. It's You're a good player, a good team only when you make those changes. I get When I actually watched the match, I felt two things. One was uh, the Australian way, the aggressive way. We only play aggressive way, and that was the downfall. And they are not even in the Super 8 now in this T20 World Cup. And something else came also to my mind. The 1996 World Cup semi-final between India and Sri Lanka, where India started off very well and literally gifted the match away and uh, didn't learn from what the others did. So these are some of the things that I felt really bad. But again, I because we are talking about Gambhir and the team management. n- Uh, Now yesterday's game, the team management Gambhir would have ruled the leaving Kohli out of the T20 or allowing him to retire. The master chaser would have brought a lot of sense into the chase, and things could have been a lot better.
Well, absolutely. Things could have been better. They're always better in the hindsight. But let me just tell you something and shock our viewers. India with moderate stats, but still struggles high on the dot ball. Yesterday, when you saw India was struggling in rotating the strikes, India had the highest percentage of losing wickets and slowing down the game in the middle overs. Satish, being an Indian follower of the game, did you see India go as bad as this in the last 10 years of T20 cricket?
No, I've never seen, because they played like amateurs than the professionals. I still feel this is not the team that played a month ago in the against South Africa or previously. So you can't come and start Tilak Varma. I don't know what's happening to him. You can't come and step out in the second ball. Uh, Again, Ishan Kishan, who might be in great form, but the previous ball was almost a catchable height, and it went one pitch to mid on, and the next ball he again goes over the infield. So these are some of the elementary mistakes I would say even a club cricketer wouldn't do. But that's why I said that lacked the approach and the planning, the temperament. Everything was under question yesterday, and I would. More importantly, I would put the blame squarely on the team management and the coaching staff because they should have read the wicket. They should have guided them and said, "Boss, don't worry, we can work out it in the last 10 overs." That's exactly what South Africa did. The last 10 overs they scored still. Another one point which I also wanted to know is, or rather talk to the readers is, the South African bowlers, if you, or the fielders, if you look at, they were trying to float the ball. They were all talking about floating the ball, which they were able to assess the conditions better, whereas the Indian spinners lacked that part. So again, the bowling coach and the team management, what did they assess the pitch? What did they assess the conditions? So there are a lot of questions. Again, I'm not sounding an alarm bell at this point of time. There is an odd loss, that's fine, but it doesn't matter. A loss is fine, but abject surrender is something which is what worrying me, and are
Abject
coming at the wrong
surrender.
time.
Satish, I hope you realize these are strong words against the defending champion India, and
Yes.
the trolls may get after you because this is the live program on NewsX you're watching. Let me move on to